The story begins with a slapping match inside a prison. A large, muscular man initially appears strong, but he immediately falls after taking a slap from his opponent. As the bearded man, named Dix, feels victory within his grasp, but a skinny, long man with an innocent and fragile face suddenly steps forward. His appearance makes everyone burst into mocking laughter as they believe the young man has no courage. They clearly underestimate him. But the young man, named Hyun-soo, remains confident and decides to join the match. They then decide the turn order with a game of rock, paper, scissors. Unfortunately, Hyun-soo loses, which means he has to take the first slap.
But then everyone's surprised, Hyun-soo doesn't flinch at all. Now it's Dix's turn to take the slap. With all his strength, Hyun-soo strikes his jaw, sending Dix staggering backward.
Feeling humiliated in front of everyone, Dix becomes furious and immediately attacks Hyun-soo. However, even though Hyun-soo is new to the prison, his fighting skills are on another level. With ease, he turns the tables, takes Dix down, and beats him mercilessly. Dix can only lie there helplessly, and if the guards hadn't stopped him, Hyun-soo might have finished him off. Because of this incident, Hyun-soo is placed in solitary confinement, the place where he first comes face to face with Jae-ho. For Hyun-soo, there are two types of people in prison: those you can touch and those you must never touch. Someone like Dix clearly belongs to the latter. When Hyun-soo asks which category Jae-ho falls into, Jae-ho coldly replies that he's the one who makes the rules. From that encounter, their relationship slowly begins to form, as if the two were destined to meet. The next day, Bongjun tells Hyun-soo that Dix and his gang will no longer dare to mess with him. This is because Jae-ho's attitude has made it clear to everyone that Hyun-soo is now under his protection. Bongjun then explains why Jae-ho holds so much power in the prison. He isn't just the leader behind these walls, he's also the boss of a major criminal gang outside. His power in prison comes from the fights sanctioned by the guards, where the winner becomes the new ruler. Coincidentally, Jae-ho has always emerged victorious, so no one dares to challenge him. However, the atmosphere changes when a new inmate arrives. His name is Kim Se-han, a man whose reputation is even more terrifying than Jae-ho's. His mere presence spreads fear throughout the prison, and many inmates lower their heads at the mention of his name. This makes Jae-ho grow even more cautious. The next day, Jae-ho decides to approach Se-han first. He introduces himself and offers a partnership in the prison's cigarette trade. There are two reasons why he's willing to step back. First, his sentence is almost over, so he doesn't want any new trouble. Second, he needs time to read his opponent's moves before striking back. However, Se-han shows no interest in the offer. At that very moment, bad news arrives. Ho-jan, Jae-ho's trusted right-hand man, has been caught and brutally beaten by the warden. It becomes clear that the warden has formed an alliance with Se-han.
Jae-ho is furious and confronts the warden, but as a result, he's beaten mercilessly and thrown into solitary confinement.
한지호 이 새끼가 독종이라도 그 나이로는 어쩌지 못할 자 못 오냐.
3 days later, Jae-ho is released in a weakened state. The situation worsens when Dix shows up with a weapon, intending to finish him off. At that critical moment, Hyun-soo appears and saves him. If it worked for Hyun-soo, Jae-ho might have been dead. But instead of feeling relieved, Jae-ho grows suspicious, wondering why the young man would go out of his way to help him. Hyun-soo gives a simple answer. His mother once told him to always help those in need. That answer leaves Jae-ho even more puzzled, while also sparking a new idea for revenge. Cunningly, he takes Hyun-soo to the warden's office under the pretense of reporting a smuggling case. There, Hyun-soo shows a phone containing evidence of Jae-ho's illegal cigarette transactions. The warden, named Gwon-si, is utterly shocked, since every smuggled item in the prison has always passed through his own hands. When Gwon-sik becomes furious and slaps Hyun-soo, Jae-ho suddenly turns around and slaps the warden instead. That's when his true plan is revealed. He had deliberately used the evidence to blackmail Gwon-sik.
If the smuggling scandal were exposed, the one who would suffer the most would be the warden himself. Cornered, Gwon-sik has no choice but to side with Jae-ho once again.
Si-han's position is now under pressure, though Jae-ho chooses not to take him down immediately. From this point, Jae-ho begins to realize that Si-han's arrival was no mere coincidence. His true purpose was to eliminate him. Even after Jae-ho tortures Si-han relentlessly, the man remains silent.
Finally, one of Si-han's men breaks down in fear and confesses. He reveals that the mastermind behind all of this is Man Chun, Jae-ho's own boss. It was Man Chun who ordered Jae-ho to be eliminated.
As a reward, Man Chun promised to smuggle in 5 kilograms of cigarettes, with 30% of the profit going to Si-han. Hearing of the betrayal, Jae-ho is shocked and furious. However, he must control himself and hide his emotions to avoid raising suspicion. Behind it all, Hin-soo is not an ordinary inmate. He's an undercover police officer. His mission is to get close to Jae-ho, gain his trust, and expose his entire gang operation. Hin-soo accepted this dangerous mission because his superior, In-soo, promised that his terminally ill mother would receive a kidney donor.
In-suk himself is a strict and calculating superior, unafraid to sacrifice others to close a case. When news comes that a matching kidney donor has been found, Hyun-soo feels overjoyed, unaware that this very moment will turn his entire life upside down. As time passes, the bond between Hyun-soo and Jae-ho grows even stronger.
방을 옮겨줘요. 제일 큰 방으로.
Until one day, a man named Byung-gab appears, Man-chan's nephew and Jae-ho's former associate. Despite their family ties, Byung-gab despises his uncle, especially after being beaten with an ashtray and left injured. Upon learning of Man-chan's betrayal, he offers to help Jae-ho take down the big boss once they're released. However, Jae-ho remains cautious, knowing that in the end, gang members will always side with whoever has the most money.
At the same time, Jae-ho begins to grow suspicious of Hyun-soo. He had long asked Byung-gab to investigate Hyun-soo's identity, but the results remained fruitless. There was no record of who he really was. During that time, Hyun-soo is still immersed in joy, believing his mother is about to be saved. However, at that very moment, his mother is on a phone call, and no one knows what happens next. Suddenly, she collapses, covered in blood.
The news of his mother's death reaches Hyun-soo, shattering his mind into madness. No one could ever bear such a cruel reality. Just when things had seemed to be getting better, tragedy struck and crushed all his hopes. From a distance, Jae-ha watches Hyun-soo scream in agony and feels a pang of sympathy in his heart.
That night, Hyun-soo contacts In-soo, begging for permission to leave prison and pay his final respects. His mother was the only family he had left, but to his shock, In-soo refuses. She claims that Hyun-soo is not a model inmate, making it impossible to grant such a request. No matter how desperately Hyun-soo pleads, In-soo remains cold and indifferent.
같은 곳에 처박아놓고 엄마 묻을 것도 못 찾게 해요.
Cornered, he threatens to expose the secret mission they've been running if he isn't released. But In-soo coldly replies that if his criminal record were erased, Hyun-soo's status would officially be listed as a real criminal. Those words leave Hyun-soo in disbelief. He can't comprehend how his superior could treat him so heartlessly. The next day, the prison warden suddenly grants him temporary release, accompanied by 2 police escorts. The warden also hands him the address of his mother's burial site, informing him that all the funeral expenses have been covered by Jae-ho. With that, Hyun-soo is allowed to attend his mother's funeral.
Returning to prison, Jae-ho immediately approaches him. He knows that in such a difficult time, Hyun-soo needs someone by his side. That night, they talk, and Hyun-soo learns for the first time that Jae-ho also carries a dark past, one that shaped him into the man he is today. From there, Jae-ho advises him not to put too much faith in promises, but instead to learn to feel with his heart who is truly sincere toward him. Only then, he says, will Hyun-soo know who can truly be trusted.
미안해. 나는 우는 상황을 믿어야지.
Jae-ho asks whether Hyun-soo would be willing to become his junior once they're both free. Hyun-soo stares at him for a long moment, remembering how cold his superior had been and how much Jae-ho, on the other hand, had helped him. In that moment, he can no longer hold himself back. Feeling utterly betrayed by his superior, he finally reveals his true identity to Jae-ho.
Time passes and Jae-ho has long been released. Eventually, the day of Hyun-soo's freedom arrives. As he steps outside, he sees Jae-ho waiting there to pick him up. That night, Hyun-soo is invited to a party. For the first time, he receives a mission directly from Jae-ho. At that very event, an old man named Mon-chan appears. However, from the very first meeting, his nephew, Byung-gab, already shows clear dislike toward Hyun-soo. He tries to provoke him, but Hyun-soo refuses to take the bait. Eventually, a fight breaks out.
When Byung-gab is about to attack him with a beer bottle, Man-chon unexpectedly stops him, even going so far as to strike his own nephew in front of everyone. Man-chon later calls Byung-gab in private, ordering his nephew to eliminate Jae-ho after an upcoming major transaction. This deal requires a special seal to pass through the inspection points, but unfortunately, the seal is in the hands of a ruthless man named Captain Choi. Man-chon assigns Jae-ho to retrieve it. Soon after, Jae-ho and Hyung-soo head to meet Captain Choi. At the same time, the police are monitoring their every move, as Hyung-soo is still connected to In-suk and has a tracking device on him. At first, the police believe Hyung-soo won't be able to handle Captain Choi, but they're wrong. Hyung-soo tries to exchange the seal for a large sum of money, but his hand is suddenly stabbed as he reaches for the cash. A brutal fight breaks out.
Meanwhile, Jae-ho, who is waiting outside, realizes that someone has reported the incident. He immediately rushes inside. Byung-gab looks displeased at the situation. Inside the room, Hyun-soo struggles fiercely against his opponent until Captain Choi's men arrive in large numbers. Jae-ho joins the fight. He no longer cares about the people outside. All that matters to him is Hyun-soo's safety.
가끔 현장 뛰면 재밌어.
Hyun-soo strikes a large, muscular man armed with the weapon, but the man is completely unfazed and simply hurls him aside. Jae-ho is forced to step in to hold him back, and together they struggle with all their strength to bring him down.
After a long and grueling fight, Jae-ho's group finally defeats their opponents. As things settle down, Hyun-soo notices that the wristwatch he's wearing has a bug attached. Without hesitation, he smashes the man holding it, destroying the device. Thanks to his action, he temporarily escapes police surveillance. This surprises Jae-ho's men, as their next destination is a location that must remain hidden from the authorities, the meeting point with their supplier. Afterwards, Jae-ho hands Hyun-soo a glass of wine before going in alone. This shows that neither fully trusts the other yet. Hyun-soo then walks out by himself. Outside, a man suddenly pulls him aside and hands him a new watch, already fitted with a bug. As they speak, Jae-ho emerges and sees them. Quickly, Hyun-soo strikes the man and explains that he went outside because the bathroom smelled too bad and he wanted to relieve himself outside, but the man bothered him. Hearing this, Jae-ho punches the man several more times, forcing Hyun-soo to drag him away to make it stop.
The truth, behind it all, Hyun-soo and Jae-ho have already reached an agreement. In other words, Hyun-soo, though a police officer, is now operating under Jae-ho's control. However, Jae-ho still hasn't fully trusted him, especially after seeing him meet with a police officer earlier that day. When Jae-ho questions why he approached the officer, Hyun-soo quickly explains that the man only came to give him a new watch.
Jae-ho then apologizes and expresses his hope that Hyun-soo will learn to trust him. He takes Hyun-soo to a secluded place and confides that throughout his life, he has been betrayed many times. Even those who had been loyal to him for 20 years are now turning against him, making it nearly impossible for him to truly trust anyone. Hearing this, Hyun-soo doesn't insist on earning Jae-ho's trust. Instead, he says that he will be the one to trust Jae-ho. Those words weigh heavily on Jae-ho's heart.
2 days before the official transaction begins, Byung-gab suddenly asks Jae-ho a pointed question. How did you manage to recruit a police officer? It turns out that from the very first time Byung-gab visited the prison to meet Jae-ho, he had already known Hyun-soo's true identity. However, instead of killing Hyun-soo, Jae-ho chose a crueler path. He hired someone to run over Hyun-soo's mother with a truck.
After that, Jae-ho pretended to help and comfort him, slowly breaking Hyun-soo's defenses until the young man lost control and placed his full trust in Jae-ho, even going so far as to reveal his true identity.
That day, Hyun-soo visits his mother's grave to pay his respects. As he sits there in silence, lost in thought, someone suddenly covers his head. He's been kidnapped. The kidnappers claim that the order came from Jae-ho, though Hyun-soo refuses to believe that Jae-ho would ever do such a thing to him. It turns out the police were behind the abduction, testing Hyun-soo's loyalty. Fortunately, during the interrogation, he mentions a crucial detail, questioning how Jae-ho could have known his true identity as a police officer. If he hadn't said that, he might have been killed right then and there.
After learning the truth, Hyun-soo is consumed by rage. He had spent years in prison, only to now be betrayed and nearly burned alive by his own superior. He demands to know from Din-soo whether the killer of his mother has been found. In reality, the police had known for a long time who was behind her death, but they deliberately kept it from him. They feared that if Hyun-soo wanted the truth too soon, it would compromise his undercover mission. In other words, they were fully aware that Jae had manipulated Hyun-soo through deceit, yet they chose to let it happen. They even knew that Jae was the mastermind behind his mother's murder, but still allowed Hyun-soo to continue working under him.
After that, Hyun-soo went to see Jae-ho. Seeing Hyun-soo's face covered in wounds, Jae-ho asked him a few questions, but he realized that Hyun-soo found it hard to talk about what had happened, so he didn't press any further. Then the two of them then went out to do something significant, setting off fireworks together. They looked genuinely happy playing together. And in that moment, they no longer doubted each other. Instead, they chose to trust one another completely. Finally, the day of the transaction arrived. Hyun-soo handed over the information about the time, location, and people involved to In-soo, though no one knew whether the information was true or fabricated. The chosen location for the deal was a luxury yacht docked at the harbor. As soon as both groups boarded the ship, one of the crew members suddenly realized that something was wrong. Moments later, the police appeared before them. This time, the officers looked far more serious. They were fully determined to arrest the entire criminal group once and for all. When the police managed to capture the traitors, In-soo stepped forward confidently to open the seized crate. But to her shock, there was nothing inside. No smuggled goods, no evidence. Frustrated, she ordered the others to open more crates, yet every single one turned out to be empty as well. With no proof left, In-soo had no choice but to let them go. In truth, the real transaction was taking place deep beneath the sea. Distrust began to spread among the groups, tension rising with every passing second. As Monchan raised his glass for a toast, Jae-ho coldly said, "I don't drink with corpses." Then, without hesitation, he pulled the trigger and shot Monchan dead. Now, Jae-ho had successfully taken over the entire organization's power. Meanwhile, from the clues gathered, In-soo began to suspect that Hyun-soo had most likely switched sides and joined Jae-ho. To deal with this, In-soo devised a plan. When Hyun-soo expressed his frustration about his superior, In-soo called him and arranged a meeting. During that meeting, In-soo revealed a photo of the incident, the moment Hyun-soo's mother was murdered. Upon seeing it, Hyun-soo's rage exploded. He demanded to know why In-soo had kept the truth from him all this time. In-soo explained that she was afraid their entire operation would fall apart if Hyun-soo had learned the truth too soon. However, at that moment, In-soo no longer cared about his mission. What mattered most to him now was avenging his mother's death. The only option he had at that moment was to follow the police's instructions. In-soo then immediately called Jae-ho, pretending to say that he was under internal investigation. He asked whether there was anyone else besides Jae-ho who knew his identity as a police officer. The question made Jae-ho suspicious of Byung-gab. After that, Hyun-soo told Jae-ho that a search team would come the next day to confiscate their goods, so they had to clean everything up and move the contraband that very night. He then arranged to meet Jae-ho at their old meeting place. The police's real plan was to force Jae-ho to flee with the contraband so they could catch him along with the evidence. That night, Jae-ho deliberately summoned Byung-gab to his office. Since Jae-ho had already been suspicious from the start whether Byung-gab had actually betrayed him or not, escaping death was nearly impossible. Byung-gab even got down on his knees to explain himself, but Jae-ho still refused to believe him.
Under In-soo's supervision, Hyun-soo went to his meeting place with Jae-ho. It was the secret hideout Jae-ho had once shown him. After finishing his business with Byung-gab, Jae-ho headed straight there. Just before stepping through the door, he sensed something was off. Jae-ho knew the place inside out, yet he didn't dismantle the police trap, he simply walked in. At that moment, neither of them intended to deceive the other anymore. Jae-ho said he had seen a water truck with tinted windows nearby, so he already knew the true purpose of this meeting. On the other hand, Hyun-soo revealed that he knew Jae-ho was the one who had killed his mother. Hearing that, Jae-ho immediately pointed his gun at Hyun-soo. However, Hyun-soo was certain that Jae-ho wouldn't shoot him, not yet, because he still needed Hyun-soo to escape from the police.
같은 새끼가 감당할 수 있는 사람 아니야.
Moments later, the police stormed into the room, but the only one left inside was Hyun-soo. Suddenly, gunfire erupted. Jae-ho was shooting at the officers from a hidden position. He kept moving and firing from cover, making it nearly impossible for the police to pin him down. At one point, an officer tried to use Hyun-soo as bait to lure Jae-ho out, but Hyun-soo fought back and ended up being choked in the struggle.
When Hyun-soo was in danger, Jae-ho finally appeared and shot the officer to dead. Now only Jae-ho and Hyun-soo remained in the room, yet Jae-ho still couldn't bring himself to pull the trigger on Hyun-soo, perhaps because he truly cared about him, or maybe because he was simply exhausted from a life built on lies.
내가 앞으로는 절대 나 믿으라고 강요 안 할게요.
However, just as Jae-ho was about to leave, he was suddenly hit by a car driven by In-soo. Then, as In-soo was about to help Jae-ho by giving him first aid, Hyun-soo suddenly appeared and shot In-soo in the head, followed by a shot to Jae-ho's chest. Hyun-soo would never forgive anyone responsible for his mother's death.
The end.
The truth is, sometimes hidden behind long-standing lies, and betrayal often comes from those we trust the most. But in the end, every lie will be exposed, and every act of betrayal will face its retribution. Hyun-soo's story teaches us that justice may come late, but it will never disappear. No matter how deep the wounds left by betrayal, only the courage to face the truth can set us free from the past.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Bye!